for Vivo, and this is the first of a regular series of webinars that we'll be bringing to you to showcase best practice and engaging topics across the education arena. So really good to welcome our first panelist. So that's Dan Raisbeck from Cybersmile Foundation. So good afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon, Colin. How are you?
I'm very well, recovering from the usual cough and the cold, but good nonetheless. So Dan, can I just ask you before, to just kind of set the scene, do a bit of an intro, kind of where have you come from to be part of Cybersmile Foundation, your journey?
Well, it started nearly over 3 years ago now, and my son became the target of online bullies through a gaming site, and we never actually resolved the issue, but it brought us closer together on the issue of cyberbullying, and we were very, very lucky it wasn't a prolonged campaign. My co-founder, however, his daughter suffered a long campaign of cyberbullying, and it was through this experience that it spurred us to find out much more about the issue, and we struggled as parents to find adequate resources, if you like, for educational purposes, awareness purposes, guidance, etc. And that was when we made a decision to do something ourselves, and that's how the Cybersmile Foundation was born, if you like. We still remain the UK's only dedicated cyberbullying charity.
Well, that's great. So the charity's really only kind of 3 years old. That's probably the best way of describing it.
Yes, that's right. I think it was 2010 we started to the idea of the charity first was formed, and it was from there that we began to build resources up, and individuals and professionals came on board to help us put foundations in place for the charity.
Obviously, you're with a small charity with kind of much limited resources. Your kind of website is really your front page. So how have you kind of built that with the resources that you wanted to try and collate to kind of tell a story? How have you kind of created this?
Well, the website, yeah. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of help from individuals and companies. Our web designer guys have been just absolutely fantastic. The web designers there, and we're still working with them in bringing the site to its full potential, which is going to be an ongoing process. It's been very carefully thought out. From our original website, which was sort of just maybe 5 or 6 pages. We now have over 200 pages on the new website that's been designed for accessibility through different age groups, because we not only cater for teenagers who are going through this, but also for adults and parents who've got younger children, how to start internet safety ideas and with your children at young age, etc. It's been a real effort of design and information design, really, to get the huge amount of information and advice that we needed to put over in the different areas that it's needed. And that's been something that our advice and guidance section, help and advice there, you can see that's it's got 9 separate sections which have different sections in themselves as well. There you go. And this is really designed so that people within a few clicks can access the area that is their main concern. As you can see there, we take quite a wide approach, but each individual area is carefully thought out, and the advice is appropriately put out there on the pages.
No, it's really clear, very simple. So let's kind of move on now to the kind of the nub of the issue, as it were. So, and it's kind of framed very centrally in this page, which is, what is cyberbullying? So what is it to you, Dan?
Well, it is a very, very, very complex issue. And when we look at the most affected areas of society, it is our teenagers, our youngsters, who are really at the front line of sort of pioneering, if you like, where we're going to go next with this sort of technology. It's our kids are our future, and they're growing up now in a very, very different world with this technology. Cyberbullying amongst teenagers is a massive problem that is now affecting different areas of society. The home life, school and education system are now starting to get quite concerned and get involved in tackling these issues surrounding cyberbullying. But it's basically people being harassed and abused and bullied online, and that can be through emails, through the phone is now a very, very popular device for youngsters with access to the internet and their email accounts and their social networking accounts and so forth. That's where a lot of this this bullying is being played out. And when we look at playground bullying, for example, physical bullying, it leaves you when you go home. With the cyberbullying, it doesn't, and it can be extremely distressing and overwhelming for a young person to be followed around, if you like, by bullies on the internet.
I think that's a really clear division in the concept of traditional bullying, though deeply unpleasant and extremely upsetting, predominantly stops when you get through your home door. Bullies may have
Yeah,
followed you home in the past, but ultimately, once you're inside your front door, it stops. It's still horrible and it's still intimidating, and I'm sure it's still very, very scary, but it kind of ends until the next time you step outside that door. And what you're saying with
yes,
cyberbullying
that's right.
is that the world doesn't stop now at the front door. The world's now inside. If you pick up a device, any particular device, and you go to the social networks that your friends are on and you've predominantly used as a teenager, then it's present again. So it's the volume that then creates, and the feeling of what I presume a feeling of continual abuse, or a continual potentially assault.
Well, yes, that's perfectly true. Yes, and the children that we've spoken to and the parents that we've spoken to that have experienced this have said, well, the children have said, I felt like I was being watched all the time, that I had no privacy, that my life had been sort of taken over by these bullies, because a lot of children now they're on the internet, they're using these social sites, and quite quite rightly so, quite happily they want to be involved, they want to be part of all of this sort of technology. It's hugely important, it's integrated in their education, so they should be doing what they're doing and grasping it and getting involved. But to be targeted by cyber hate or cyberbullying can really affect a young person, and make them feel like they are being watched all the time, and it makes them mistrustful as well of friends, of people they don't know. Because remember, with a bully, a physical bully, you can see who they are. With the cyberbullying, you can't, and you may or may not know some of the people who are making nasty comments about you, but there may be some that you don't know, or maybe some people who you think they're someone else. And it's this anonymity that's quite a telling element of this phenomenon.
Just explain to me the anonymity point, and this is particularly related to a couple of the platforms. So ultimately, if I send a text to a friend, then that friend knows that
Mm.
that text is coming from Colin. So when you're talking about anonymity, are you talking about people on particular social platforms? I think a number have been mentioned in the news, where effectively
Yeah.
they're under kind of anonymized. How does it work? Explain to a.
Well, I think. I think you'll find that most sites that you can go on and communicate with other people, whether it's through an email address or through a profile that you create, they're all pretty open to people just creating an anonymous profile. All you need is an email address to actually join up to any networking site, really, and you can just create a persona. So with some cyberbullying, it is a case where you are well aware of who it is, and that's usually through the school playground, an argument, then spilling out onto the internet, and you know who's involved and they know you. But there is also a wider picture. There is, especially on social networking sites, when you may be making friends with people and you don't know who they are, but then again there's a sort of added pressure on youngsters to become part of these social networking sites, whatever the next one is that the kids use, and they all want to be on it, and they all want to have as many friends as possible. So in a way there's a pressure to sort of create a big friends list, and you may not know exactly who you are bringing on board as a friend. So you could receive an email from someone who, as I say, you assume you think they know who they are from their profile, but they could be someone completely different.
Right. And then one of the complications that's been raised to date has been almost a feeling of a kind of pack mentality with regard to this. So it's not necessarily one-on-one bullying. I can understand the anonymous nature of it, but there's also a feeling that this is kind of 5-on-1 or 10-on-1 or 20-on-1. So have we got any kind of understanding of that particular aspect?
Well, there's a number of different theories based on research that's been done by various organisations and charities, which suggest that something called passenger bullying, or bullying by proxy, which is where people are sort of brought into the fray, some unwittingly, by being asked to sort of pass on messages, or could you make this phone call and just say this, which may be, or can you pass this text on to someone, and it may not seem, it's a small piece of a jigsaw, but it might not seem much to that person, and they may be sort of influenced by peer pressure to get involved, and that's an element of this pack thing. It's people following the crowd, and when children are asked about messages they've passed on, or campaigns that they may have been involved in, even posting one or two messages, they'll often say, well, I was just going with the flow, everyone was doing it, I thought it was a laugh, we didn't know, it was only a joke, it shouldn't be taken seriously. And that's where we have to look at the sort of the emotional side of children's, their emotional intelligence. How aware are they of the emotions on the other end of the screen? And that's something that needs looking at, definitely.
So is that a particular research opportunity, Dan, that you think that there's a gap in our understanding at this particular point, or we have a good understanding of emotional intelligence or emotional involvement, we just haven't applied it to this particular area?
Indeed, yes, and it's something that does need to be looked at, and it has been mentioned as emotional detachment. That is, the kids are just sort of putting out and reacting, if you like, to messages that are coming their way, or just purposely being nasty, but not realising exactly the full extent of the emotional damage that what they're doing is having on the person on the other end. And there is a degree of this sort of not enough depth of emotional understanding about what they're doing, which is something that we do breach in the workshops that we do at schools, where we look at the real human cost and the emotional side of that. And it's surprising how many children do express a sort of surprise that this is the case, that it's not just a joke, there are real feelings, not just sort of cyber feelings, if you like. It is a real person there, and it's a real issue.
Very interesting. I'm sure we'll come to the workshops slightly later, but just to kind of dig in a little bit deeper beyond the kind of research concept, what is the and it sounds terrible, but what is the kind of the group most likely to be cyberbullied and the group most likely to cyberbully? Who are we really talking about in this space? And I appreciate it's such a wide space; it covers a lot of ground, but there must be a kind of we must be able to narrow it down. Is it predominantly teenage girls, and is teenage too wide a definition?
I wouldn't say teenage is too wide a definition. There's different areas of risk for different ages with cyberbullying, and it doesn't really start until children are sort of getting towards that teen, that sort of 11, 12 age. But yes, I mean, it can happen before, but to actually pinpoint it down is very, very difficult. There's conflicting statistics that say it's predominantly teenage girls that are more likely to be the victims of cyberbullying, but are teenage boys just better at hiding it? You know, there's many different dynamics involved in why children are motivated to bully or to join in and just run with the pack. And I don't think we could say girls are more likely to get involved in cyberbullying, but we could say that, as I said before, boys are less likely to talk about it. So I'm not sure. It's certain to say that the teenage years, between sort of 11, 12 up to 16, 17, are where most cases are being reported, and it's most sort of virile within that age group. But that's the age group that we look at, and we say, well, these are people becoming adults. They are challenging everything around them, and is it just by behaviour that this is evident an increase or rather a sort of a peak in this kind of behaviour? So it's very difficult to say.
Well, hey, I think Dan, you've done a fantastic job of kind of pinning it down so much. Before we move on, just as a quick reminder to those on the line, this is obviously one of the Vivo Ed chats, so please do get involved in the conversation either by instant messaging in your questions or using Twitter, so hashtag VivoEdChat or at VivoMiles, and obviously we'll try and get you guys as involved as possible. Just one point particularly on this relevant to this webpage that we're looking at the moment, Dan, cyberbullying and the law. Where do we kind of stand on a legal perspective around cyberbullying?
That's a very interesting point. And in the UK, we at the moment stand where we have always stood, with the same laws now being looked at to cover online harassment, bullying, abuse. The Communications Act is being brought into play, the harassment laws, and we are seeing convictions, but there still is no legal definition of what cyberbullying is. And some of the laws that are being used do have fairly restrictive sentences, which may not reflect the severity of, for example, suicide caused by cyberbullying or online blackmail or so forth. So it still needs to be looked at, and it is in development, if you like. At the moment, there's some guidelines being brought out by the Crown Prosecution Service, which do tell how the law is now being interpreted in cases of cyberbullying, and how the law is looking at each case. But there's still a lot more room for a wider look at this. When we look at European law, for example, there's some research being done into and studies being done as to whether misuse of data laws, European misuse of data laws, can be used to bring about convictions which are to do with cyber hate and bullying. And then we look at the states. There are already laws there in place. South America, some countries have brought some laws into place as well, which are very firm and have been amended. Laws have been amended there. But on a global scale, bearing in mind that the internet is connected through, throughout the world, we then have to look at the situations of how do you start legal proceedings between a country that does recognise cyberbullying law and a country that doesn't. Should there be a more international perspective being thought about, and how would that be implemented? It's very, very, very complex issue, really. But within our own country, it is, if you like, being looked at by existing laws.
Which is, to be fair, where you'd expect that the England being UK being very much a case law based system. As new areas emerge, case law and guidance from, as you say, Crown Prosecution Services tends to evolve to that point. And obviously the law will always potentially be one step behind the advance in technology. It's very difficult for a legal framework to jump ahead of this. Very useful. So Dan, let's move the conversation on now, and let's talk about the kind of general wider campaign that your charity is trying to put forward. So you're trying to raise awareness of the issues, and how are you trying to do that?
Well, in a number of ways. The services that we offer are the sort of education side of what we do as a charity, and that's obviously the content of our website, as well as workshops that we offer for schools, counselling for the victims that we can have arranged, but the campaigns for awareness are mainly taking place on our social media, which is massively important to engage with the social media. Facebook and Twitter are areas of Cybersmile that are really to do with positive engagement, positive activity and action, and our Twitter is a sort of constant stream of positive affirmations to sort of encourage people to be more positive on the internet. And the same with our Facebook page. We put a lot of positive affirmations out there, news stories and so forth, to keep people involved in supporting this movement for positive change. Get people engaged with the internet more activities, and that's a big part of what we do on our social media, and that's going very, very well. We've had some fantastic responses from Twitter campaigns, and we went viral on June the 21st. We had our first Stop Cyberbullying Day, which was the day of positive online engagement, and we trended, I think it was 4th in the world, which was fantastic that evening with a hashtag of Stop Cyberbullying Day. And that brought about a lot of support from around the world, and then we saw a number of people sort of getting involved and saying, great to be part of this, I'm a Cybersmiler. And that's had its own little sort of spin-off, if you like, and people have caught that little bug, and now they're tweeting in as Cybersmilers, and we've got Cybersmilers all over the world just contributing in a positive way to our social media, and that's a great place to be. And if anyone is experiencing negativity on the internet, come to our social media, Cybersmile social media, and we can give you some good positive affirmations and feedback there. So it's a good place to be. More specifically, we've had a recent campaign for education and awareness in the light of recent suicides that have been documented in the media and so forth, which is a hard-hitting, very realistic sort of creative film that has been released like 4 days ago, and that's now creating lots of interest on the internet. We've had over 100,000 people view this, and the traffic to our site has increased tenfold. And this is a tremendous awareness campaign, bringing people to our site to find out more about the issue and what they can do, how they can help themselves. So we're very I'm very pleased with that.
And just before we come to the campaign, because I do want to talk about that specifically, the recent one, the Don't Retaliate campaign, I think ultimately, and I think it's an important point to get across, you didn't call yourself the Cyberbullying Foundation, as it were. You've very much
No,
stuck to that Cybersmile Foundation. We are about cyberbullying, but
yeah,
we are about doing it. We are about talking about the positivity, because it
yeah,
could be a very easy, not trap, but it could have been a real. It could be a really easy thing for you to get into a very negative place. And I think it's very interesting that obviously the
yeah,
charity is set up on a very positive affirmation, and your social media very much respects that positive affirmation.
yeah.
But you're not afraid to take on the tough issues either. And obviously, teen suicides probably as tough as you're going to get. So I think there's a nice balance there. Overwhelmingly positive, but not pulling necessarily looking to pull your punches.
Absolutely. The Don't Retaliate film is is brutal. It's hard hitting. It's as real as it gets, and it's the truth of this situation, the severity, the tragic outcomes that we've seen, um, throughout the last 2 or 3 years. It is, yes, it is definitely um, punchy, very, very punchy campaign that is there to draw attention and educate people and make people aware of the the real tragic outcome that can happen if people continue cyberbullying in this way.
And we're going to play the video in a second, because I kind of almost want you to do a director's cut where you're just explaining the key points around the video. I would obviously encourage anyone to watch the video afterwards. They will play it over the webinar. You won't get the sound. There isn't an awful. It's more of a backing sound. But it's well
Yeah,
worth watching in the flesh. But before we do that, just tell me a little bit of the history of the video itself, because I understand that the producer, the production team, there's a personal reason why they helped you make this.
that's right. Yes, the production team based in London, Rattling Stick, they are fantastic, and they've done a lot of work with charities as well as other awareness campaigns and advertising. But Ed Morris, the creative director, is a phenomenal talent, and he has had experience with this, as has Chris, the director there at the company, and their personal experience really helped them to understand the depth of which we needed to go into this, to get this message out there in the stark reality of it's costing lives. That's the real bottom line here. This is costing lives, and it needs to stop, and people need to know we are here, and that there are resources there available, and there is help available. And the direction, the way he's handled it is absolutely brilliant, and the message is there. We've honed it down to don't retaliate as a point to one particular point of advice, and that's then to lead on to people to come to the site and have a look at the other points of advice. But don't retaliate is is a fairly standard piece of advice that's being used across the board in schools and other organisations that are trying to help people deal with cyberbullying. And if a youngster is being abused online with hateful messages and so forth, then it is a good policy not to retaliate in kind. That is to fight back online, because of the escalation that can instigate, if you like. Bearing in mind that some of these people you may know, then it's a good policy to maybe not play this argument out online, because without the um, without all the lines of communication there, i.e. talking to someone face to face, you've got their tone of voice, you've got their facial expression, communication is complete. On the internet, none of that's there, so there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. So arguments between people who know each other really shouldn't be played out across the internet. It's not a great forum for really clear communication, and there's the opportunity for people to mediate with each other at another time. So we'd say if it's an argument, definitely, don't start retaliating online, because it can get out of hand. Plus, if it's on a forum type of format, then there will be other people watching, and it might invite other people in. So to not retaliate, and we're not saying don't do anything about it. What we're saying is don't retaliate in kind. Don't become part of an argument. Then it becomes a two-way street, if you like. And sometimes victims of cyberbullying can be accused of cyberbullying themselves, because they've tried to fight back with comments to retaliate. And that's something that we feel isn't helpful at all, and it makes things worse. So that's a strong piece of advice, and it stops this cycle of stress as the fire builds, if you like. Don't fuel the fire, stop it. Yeah.
No.
Retaliate. Get help. That's what we're saying. That's a strong, singular message.
No, that's really, really clear, Dan. Thank you very much. Well, let's play the video, and then, as I said, I encourage everyone to play it in their own time. But maybe you can kind of talk through the kind of key messages, Dan, that you were trying to get across at the different points.
Here's the actress playing a song, and as the camera pans out, you see she's actually loading it online to YouTube. She's getting some very negative feedback, and she's reacting straight away. Now you can see there's a noose coming into the picture here. Now this is symbolic of her being drawn into this world of cyberbullying, and it's feeding it. And the more she feeds it, and the more she sends, the more this sort of external pressure takes its grip. Now, this particular scene here, you see the mum looking over. She doesn't know.
So, well, I'll pause it, and then you can.
Here, this is a clever piece of camera work which silhouettes the girl with the noose still there.
Just explain the mum bit again.
This particular little scene there that we just popped. Well, when we were looking at that scene just before, you have the mother looking over at the young girl, and she smiles, and as if to say, are you okay? And the girl smiles back, yeah, I'm fine. She's obviously not. The mother's completely unaware of the noose around the neck, and the girl herself is still unaware of the noose around her neck. But that is the symbol of the stress building, this overwhelming stress building up inside of her as this campaign that she's sort of fueling by reacting is continuing, and it's getting the pressure's building, if you like. Here's some clever work with the camera as we see the silhouette of the noose around the girl while she's holding the phone. So it's following around, it's at home, it's outside of school, etc.
And there was a particular bit. Sorry, Dan. There was a particular bit in the other scene where the younger brother was also looking across.
Yes, interesting. We asked Ed about this, and he said it's sometimes people pick up on different things. Mum might not be picking up on the daughter's distress, but we show the boys picking up on it. Remember, the noose is invisible to the family, but the young brother knows something's wrong, and that was something that Ed put in there, and I thought it was very, very interesting, because people do pick up on change of moods in a different way, and young siblings are also, they pick up when their older brother's not quite right and mum's missing it. I thought it was quite a subtle little play there.
Absolutely. So if we carry on and you carry on talking.
yeah, so she's still here, involved in this two-way cyberbullying slangy match, and it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. You know, her friends, she's still masking it from her friends. She's becoming more isolated, straight back to the computer, feeding the flames, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And there we see the chair going down. And this is symbolic of just her being completely overwhelmed by this onslaught. And the voiceover here, we talk about there are teen-related suicides. Do not retaliate. Go to cybersmile.org. Yeah, tip 1: don't retaliate for more information. So it's quite it's a very heavy hitting imagery there, and in the wake of so many teen suicides, we felt it was a message that had to get across, that this is drawing teenagers to their very limit, you know, and if it is left to escalate, if it is left undetected, there can be tragic consequences, and that's what people need to know. The bullies need to know it, teenagers themselves and young people need to know it, parents need to know it, and this is what this film is doing.
And as you say, you've had a very strong reaction so far, over 110,000 views to this site, and to playing this particular video. You've had an awful lot of traffic on Twitter. You've also got some big supporters on Twitter, you know, who've helped you reach out very much to this market. So feel free to name drop, because I know you've got quite a few in your bag.
Well, yes, we've had a number of celebrities come on board. No, Cher Lloyd's done a lot for us, and Daniela Westbrook has also done some tweets for us. Then we had I can't remember her name now. That's awful, isn't it? Danielle Pisa is a huge success for us, and she's one of our ambassadors, and she's one of the main dancers for One Direction, and Jessie J. She's got a massive following, and it's so important that you know, these people with these big followings, these celebrities with the big followings on Twitter, are getting involved with us, because they reach so many people, and it's been a huge factor in us getting our message out there. So we're so happy to bring on celebrities and so forth. It makes a big difference.
Well, that's great. And in terms of then turning back to the issue itself slightly, not necessarily the teen suicide, but the wider issue of cyberbullying, any thoughts and reflections on the roles that schools can play in this? Because it isn't a school-only problem, you know, if only. But what are schools trying to do, and where are schools doing it well, and where are schools struggling?
I think all schools that where it's affecting them, you know, the responses are appropriate. There are things that are being put into place, but it's very difficult, and sort of coordinating something on a national scale is really what's required, so that the resources are centralised, so that there are definitive guidelines for teachers who experience the problem themselves. You know, so teachers get cyberbullied as well by pupils, not just pupil to pupil, and how to help pupils deal with it. One thing we are particularly interested in looking at is forming cyberbullying being included in parts of the curriculum. Now, ICT is now long established in schools. However, they cover more security orientated education, not necessarily the type of education that's going to help deal with cyberbullying. That seems to be more of an area for PSHE, personal social health education, which is not a statutory part of the curriculum. It's optional at the moment. However, that is a great area for schools to deliver the education needed to maybe help children raise their levels of awareness about what cyberbullying is, why kids are doing it, and the emotional aspects of it that will help them make the right choices. This is where we look at sort of, as we said earlier, emotional intelligence. That's another huge area of attention within the education department. You know, that it is very, very important that all our children are emotionally aware of their own emotions and other people's, you know, and that we feel can be used to deliver the type of education that's going to help with this problem with cyberbullying, because there, as we said before, this emotional detachment that we're seeing kids demonstrate in some areas of cyberbullying, that's a wonderful opportunity to address that through PSHE. So we'd like to see the government develop something in that direction.
Good. Well, we've had an overwhelming response to this particular webinar topic, and I'm sure, as you can see from today, we've spent a good 40 odd minutes talking about it, and we've still only scratched the surface. So I'm sure on another VivoEdChat we will return to this particular topic, and it potentially would be really good to get you, Dan, yourself back on the line, but also get some other schools involved, and maybe localize the issue and get them to talk about what they are doing in terms of policies, where they see the role of the school, where is the role of effectively parents, and to be fair, the role of wider society, as well as the communications industry, the tech space, you know, the IP providers, but also the Ask FMs and other mechanisms that children use to communicate. I think it's been interesting. We've had been promoting obviously the campaign and the issue of cyberbullying across the 600 odd Vivo schools in the UK and Australia, both to the teachers and the students, and that's been a very positive response. We've had lots of people following it on Twitter and responding to those kind of key messages. So I think that's been, as well as raising money for Cyberbullying Foundation, which I think is always positive. So I definitely think we'll return to that particular topic. I'm going to draw the webinar to a close now, because we say we'd go on for 45 minutes, and that's pretty much up. So I'd thank very much Dan from Cybersmile Foundation for delivering a sterling kind of semi-structured interview this afternoon. As I said, the session will be recorded and will be available on the Vivo website as of tomorrow. Please, obviously, if you're utilizing social media, please use the hashtag VivoEdChat. We'll be running another webinar next week, Thursday at 4 o'clock. We'll be focusing on the role of a bit more Vivo-ish next week. So Vivo champions within the school, what makes a good Vivo champion. So feel free to dial into that. But we'll also, the following week, we'll be returning to a wider and broader topic issue. And it will oscillate between a Vivo topic and a kind of wider topic every other week. So I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thanks very much, Dan from Cybersmile Foundation. And we'll end the webinar there. Good afternoon.